When I was 10, my doctor told me that I have to stop drinking apple juice or I'd soon look like I'm 6 months pregnant. This was my first endocrinologist, a doctor I go to for my Hashimoto's thyroiditis. But don't worry, you don't have to know what that is. I've been to a lot of doctors in nearly 17 years, and I've heard stories of many more experiences with them. Now, what is a doctor? The Cambridge English Dictionary's definition is a person with a medical degree whose job is to treat people who are sick or hurt. They fall under the term physician, which is an individual who has received a doctor of medicine or a doctor of osteopathic medicine degree or an equivalent degree following successful completion of a prescribed course of study from a school of medicine or osteopathic medicine, as defined by the American Medical Association. And don't worry, that was as hard for me to understand when I first read it too. Despite falling under these general terms, there are many different types of doctors. But the point is that we go to them when we are in need, physically or mentally. Unfortunately, sometimes doctors hurt us inadvertently in ways that could have been avoided. This goes into what is often referred to as bedside manner. Not only can people get hurt physically, but mentally and emotionally. When giving information to a patient, it's important to pass it on in a comprehensible manner, so as not to hurt the patient with simple misunderstandings or poor wording. And while the New York State's Health Department Office of Professional Medical Conduct, or the OPMC, addresses willful harassment, abuse, and intimidation of a patient by a physician, attitude and communication skills are often not addressed. And it's absolutely necessary to address issues of abuse first. But also, what would happen if I, or my mom I should say, filed a complaint about what was said to me when I was 10? Nothing. Most likely, it would have been looked over and dismissed, or at best, my doctor would have been told not to do it again and life would move on as normal. For everyone but me, and the many other people that have based their self-image on the word of a professional they trusted. It is a harmful comment like this which can be detrimental to a person's character. The tone and word choice used changes the way a message is received, and doctors have a responsibility as the ones in charge of our health to make sure their words and word choice don't harm us. In 2022, a group of 6 physicians from the U.S., making up a variety of doctors and researchers, wrote an article on the attitude of physicians towards disabled people and what needs to be changed. They interviewed various physicians from around the U.S. as part of their research. This article is called, "I Am Not the Doctor for You, Physicians' Attitude About Caring for People with Disabilities." Now, I acknowledge that not everyone is disabled. But the article brings up a good point that some doctors let their personal issues and ideas affect how they care or don't care for people. This is prevalent in people with disabilities because they often require more accommodations and they have to visit more doctors than average. Speaking of accommodations, it was found in the study that some accommodations requested by people with disabilities cause problems for doctors. Issues such as medical assistants not doing a weight check on patients with wheelchairs, their excuse often being that it was not safe because these practices couldn't get or just didn't have proper equipment. These patients would not receive a weight check until a big deal was made. This means that patients were not getting a proper health check, which could cause a health problem to be overlooked. More physical accommodations include no ramps and no accessible exam tables. Physicians also find it difficult communicating with some patients, with those with hearing impairments, intellectual disabilities, or mental illnesses, and often had to rely on the patient's caregiver for translation as they didn't have the means to communicate, such as Braille or a sign language interpreter. Some doctors found it difficult to separate necessary accommodations from illegitimate accommodations. In fact, a thought expressed by one of the interviewed physicians specifically addressed the American with Disability Act, and they said that it made them afraid of treating patients with disabilities because it made them a target. This proves that we need better communication of needs between doctors and patients. These aren't necessities that should be provided as a general rule, but because they are not, doctors find it difficult or sometimes unnecessary to accommodate. Some physicians involved in the study said that they needed more training on how to address the problems of those with disabilities. And why don't they have it? We need a better backbone in medical care so that all people can get the care that they need. We can clearly see from this study that medical care is lacking in providing a comfortable and open environment for patients. This applies to all people because these interviewed physicians were doctors that any person could have had an appointment with, not just people with disabilities. If someone somehow upset the balance, they could receive mediocre care. If you don't fit normal standards, then your doctor's practice could just turn you away. Multiple physicians from the study claimed that appointment lengths were a problem, and people with disabilities were a disruption to the clinic flow. For taking more time than most appointments, which could be any one of us. Completely healthy people can take more time than the average scheduled 15-minute appointment because they just ask a lot of questions. And they can also take more time by getting an injury. What if you got an infection? What if you got a bad cold? You want to get better, right? You're going to ask the doctor how. One physician states, it's hard to individualize what you need to do and make sure they understand and you take care of their needs in a 15-minute appointment, which is applicable to all people. While this study is directed towards people with disabilities, all people are different and require different care methods to best fit their needs. Most doctors do not have this way of thinking drilled into their heads. They know how to treat a patient, but do they know how to care for one? Of course, on the other side of the spectrum is a doctor that's a perfect fit for us. These doctors go above and beyond standards and expectations to care for their patients. They are often overlooked because we remember the good more than we remember the bad, even if they both affect our lives. If you found doctors that make you feel seen, heard, or that helped you understand in a way that you can comprehend, then you hit the jackpot. But at the same time, shouldn't all doctors be like this for us? Why do we often assume everything our doctors do is correct? They are people too, and people are always learning and can be wrong. Why am I saying this? What can I change? Hopefully, your point of view. We need to have a reinforced standard for our doctors. We need to hold them accountable for the words and the tone they use. People misspeak and phrase things wrong all the time. It's not your fault. I do it too. But if a doctor says, has your face always been asymmetrical and doesn't explain why it's important, sometimes you start to question yourself. Or if they say, you have to take your mind off it, then the pain will go away. It works for my daughter. We might feel like they're dismissing our suffering. We all need doctors to understand and work well with us because we don't deserve to be put down, and we deserve to know what is happening in our body. Doctors need to be held to a standard because not everyone goes above and beyond expectations, understandable, and not everyone understands emotions well, including doctors. So they need some incentive to do so. Rules and regulations. Doctors are not bad for making a mistake, but they need to be held responsible for it, especially so they don't do it again. We teach children that if they accidentally hurt someone's feelings, they should say sorry. Should our doctors not do the same? Harm to your mental health is just as important as harm to your physical health. They are both part of us, and we need to stop brushing off mental harm just because it's not visible. You and your health are important. I'm Elizabeth Guerrero, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk.